In the grand halls of Windsor Palace, where golden chandeliers have witnessed centuries of royal celebrations, a single question from 7-year-old Princess Isabella would shatter the carefully constructed world her parents had built around her.
What began as the most joyous day in the kingdom's recent history, the arrival of the long-awaited royal heir, would become the moment when innocence collided with the harsh realities of royal duty, leaving Prince Alexander and Princess Catherine questioning everything they thought they knew about protecting their daughter's heart. Sometimes the most profound truths come from the smallest voices, and on that fateful evening as the kingdom celebrated outside their windows, Princess Isabella's bedtime question would echo through the palace corridors, changing the royal family forever. This is the story of how a moment of pure childhood curiosity unveiled secrets that had been hidden for years, and how two devoted parents learned that love sometimes means facing the most difficult conversations of all.
This is a work of fiction featuring the imaginary Windsor royal family. The morning sun cast golden rays through the tall windows of Windsor Palace as Princess Catherine held her newborn son for the first time. Prince Alexander stood beside her hospital bed, his eyes filled with tears of joy as he gazed down at the tiny bundle wrapped in the finest silk blankets the kingdom could provide. After years of hoping and praying, their family was finally complete.
"He's perfect," Catherine whispered, her voice barely audible as she traced the baby's delicate features with her finger. Prince James, as they had decided to name him, slept peacefully in his mother's arms, unaware that his arrival had already caused celebrations to erupt across the entire kingdom. The palace staff had been preparing for this moment for months. Royal protocol demanded that the birth of a potential heir be announced with great fanfare, and indeed church bells were already ringing throughout the capital city. Citizens gathered in the streets, waving flags and singing traditional songs of celebration. This was the moment the kingdom had been waiting for since Alexander and Catherine's wedding 5 years ago. Dr. Margaret Thornfield, the royal physician who had overseen the birth, smiled as she watched the new parents. She had delivered many babies throughout her career, but there was something special about witnessing the pure joy of a family welcoming their child. "Your Highnesses, the baby is in perfect health. All the initial examinations show he's strong and developing beautifully." Alexander reached out to gently touch his son's hand, marveling at the tiny fingers that instinctively wrapped around his own. "Catherine, look at his grip. He's going to be strong, just like his big sister." The mention of Princess Isabella brought a warm smile to both parents' faces. Their 7-year-old daughter had been eagerly awaiting the arrival of her baby brother, asking countless questions about when he would arrive and what games they would play together. The sound of approaching footsteps in the corridor outside caught their attention. Alexander knew it would be the palace officials, ready to begin the formal procedures that followed any royal birth. There would be photographs for the official announcement, meetings with government representatives, and countless documents to sign. But for now, in this quiet moment, they were simply a family celebrating new life. Catherine adjusted the baby's blanket, ensuring he was comfortable. "I never imagined I could love someone so instantly and so completely," she said, looking up at Alexander. "When Isabella was born, I thought my heart was full, but somehow it's expanded to make room for even more love." Alexander nodded, understanding exactly what his wife meant. The birth of their first child had transformed them both, teaching them depths of love they never knew existed. Now, with James's arrival, that love had multiplied rather than divided. He leaned down to kiss Catherine's forehead, then placed a gentle kiss on his son's head. Outside the window, they could hear the distant sounds of celebration continuing in the city below. Street vendors were likely selling commemorative items. Children were probably getting the day off school, and families were gathering to toast the health of the new prince. It was a tradition that went back hundreds of years in the kingdom of Windsor, and Alexander felt the weight of that history settling on his shoulders. "The people are so happy," Catherine observed, listening to the joyful sounds drifting through the window. "I can hear them singing the old lullabies my grandmother used to sing to me." Dr. Thornfield finished her notes and approached the royal couple. "Your Highnesses, I'll need to take Prince James for a few routine procedures, but they won't take long. Perhaps this would be a good time for you both to rest before the official presentations begin." Alexander looked at Catherine, who reluctantly nodded. She understood the importance of the medical procedures, but the thought of being separated from her newborn, even briefly, made her anxious.
"How long will you need him?"
"No more than an hour, Your Highness. We'll bring him back to you as soon as everything is complete." Dr. Q Group.
Thornfield carefully took the baby from Catherine's arms, her experienced hands ensuring his comfort and safety. As the doctor left the room with Prince James, Alexander sat on the edge of Catherine's bed and took her hand. "How are you feeling? Really feeling, not just what you think you should say for the cameras later." Catherine squeezed his hand, appreciating his concern for her genuine well-being rather than just her public appearance. I'm tired, of course, but also overwhelmed with happiness, and a little nervous about how Isabella will react when she meets her brother. She's been so excited, but I know it's going to be an adjustment for her. Isabella is going to be an amazing big sister, Alexander assured her. Remember how gentle she was with the palace kittens last spring? She has such a caring heart. Their conversation was interrupted by a soft knock at the door. Alexander's private secretary Thomas Whitmore entered with a respectful bow. Your Highnesses, forgive the interruption. The Prime Minister is here for the official confirmation of the birth, and the photographers are ready whenever you feel prepared for the announcement photos.
Alexander looked at Catherine, who nodded slowly.
They both knew this was part of their duty, but it felt strange to shift from the intimate family moment to the formal requirements of their royal roles. Give us 15 minutes, Thomas, and please make sure Princess Isabella is brought here as soon as the initial formalities are complete. I want her to meet her brother before anyone else. Of course, Your Highness. Princess Isabella is actually in the children's playroom with her tutor, but she's been asking about the baby every few minutes. Thomas smiled, clearly charmed by the young princess's enthusiasm. After Thomas left, Catherine began preparing herself for the public aspects of the day.
A team of stylists would arrive soon to help her look appropriate for the official photographs, but she wanted a few more moments of quiet with Alexander before the controlled chaos began. Do you think we're ready for this? Catherine asked, her voice carrying a note of uncertainty that she rarely allowed herself to express.
Alexander considered her question seriously. I don't think anyone is ever truly ready to be parents, royal or not. But I know we love our children, and we'll figure out the rest as we go. He paused, looking out the window at the celebrating crowds. Sometimes I worry about the pressure we're placing on them, especially James, being the heir. But then I remember that we can give them something more valuable than titles or crowns. What's that? About a family that truly loves and supports each other, no matter what.
That's what my parents gave me, despite all the royal obligations. And it's what we'll give Isabella and James.
Dr. Thornfield returned with Prince James, who had slept peacefully through all his medical procedures.
Everything looks perfect, she announced, carefully placing the baby back in Catherine's arms. He's a healthy, beautiful prince. As Catherine held her son again, she felt a renewed sense of confidence about their future as a family.
The formal announcements and public celebrations would come and go, but this feeling of complete love and contentment would remain with her always. The sound of approaching voices in the hallway indicated that their private time was coming to an end.
Soon the room would fill with officials, photographers, and all the formality that surrounded royal life. But for just a moment longer, they remained simply a mother, father, and their newborn son, basking in the pure joy of new life and infinite possibility.
Alexander stood up as the first officials entered the room, straightening his jacket and preparing to step back into his role as crown prince. But his eyes remained soft as he looked at his wife and son, knowing that, no matter what the day brought, this moment of perfect happiness would stay with him forever.
The afternoon sun filled the royal nursery as Princess Isabella practically bounced with excitement outside the door.
She had been waiting all morning to meet her baby brother, and her patience was finally being rewarded. Her governess, Miss Eleanor Hartwell, gently smoothed Isabella's dark curls and adjusted her favorite blue dress, the one with tiny embroidered flowers that she had specifically chosen for this special day.
Remember, Princess, we must be very quiet and gentle, Miss Hartwell reminded her softly. Baby James is still very small and needs lots of rest. Isabella nodded solemnly, though her eyes sparkled with barely contained excitement.
I know, Miss Hartwell. Mama told me babies are like little flowers that need gentle care to grow strong.
She had been practicing being quiet and gentle for weeks, preparing for this moment when she would finally become a big sister. Alexander opened the nursery door, his face breaking into a warm smile when he saw his daughter's eager expression.
Are you ready to meet your brother, Isabella?
Yes, Papa,
she whispered loudly, then immediately covered her mouth with her hand, remembering she was supposed to be quiet. Alexander chuckled and took her small hand in his, leading her into the softly lit room where Catherine sat in a comfortable chair, holding the sleeping baby.
Isabella approached slowly, her eyes wide with wonder, as she got her first close look at Prince James. He was smaller than she had imagined, his tiny face peaceful in sleep, his little hands curled into delicate fists.
He's so small, Mama, she breathed, her voice filled with awe. Would you like to sit with me and hold him? Catherine asked, patting the arm of the wide chair beside her.
Isabella nodded eagerly but climbed up carefully, mindful of her parents' instructions about being gentle. Catherine carefully transferred the baby to Isabella's arms, keeping her own hands ready to provide support. Isabella held her breath as the warm, tiny weight of her brother settled against her chest. "Hello, James," she whispered. "I'm your big sister, Isabella. I've been waiting so long to meet you." Alexander watched this tender scene unfold, his heart swelling with pride and love. Isabella's natural maternal instincts were already apparent as she instinctively adjusted her hold to better support the baby's head, just as Catherine had taught her with the dolls they had practiced with. "What do you think of him?" Catherine asked softly, stroking Isabella's hair as she watched her daughter's face for any signs of jealousy or uncertainty. "I think he's perfect," Isabella replied without hesitation. "His fingers are so tiny, and look at his little nose. Does he know I'm his sister?" "Not yet," Alexander explained, settling into a chair nearby. "But he will learn very quickly that you're one of the most important people in his world. You'll teach him so many things as he grows up." Isabella's face lit up with this responsibility. "I can teach him how to read, and how to ride horses, and all the best hiding spots in the palace." She paused, looking thoughtful. "But first, I think I should teach him how to be brave, like you taught me, Papa." Catherine and Alexander exchanged a meaningful look over their daughter's head. Isabella had indeed learned courage from her father, but she had also developed a compassionate heart that would serve her well as a big sister. Baby James stirred slightly in Isabella's arms, making a small sound that wasn't quite crying but indicated he was beginning to wake up. Isabella looked concerned. "Is he okay?" "Did I wake him up?" "No, sweetheart, you're doing perfectly," Catherine assured her. "Babies wake up on their own schedule. He's probably getting hungry." As if on cue, James opened his eyes and let out a small cry. Isabella looked fascinated rather than alarmed. "His eyes are blue like mine. Well, sort of like mine. They're lighter. Most babies are born with blue eyes," Alexander explained. "They might change color as he gets older, or they might stay blue like yours." The baby's cries grew a bit louder, and Catherine gently took him back from Isabella. "I think someone is ready for lunch," she said with a smile. "Isabella, would you like to help me feed him? You could sing to him while he eats. You have such a beautiful voice." Isabella's face brightened at the suggestion. She had been taking singing lessons for the past year and loved any opportunity to share her developing talent. As Catherine began to feed James, Isabella started singing a gentle lullaby she had learned from her music teacher, her clear young voice filling the nursery with sweetness. The baby seemed to respond to his sister's voice, his crying subsiding as he focused on eating and listening to the melodic sounds. Alexander watched this peaceful domestic scene, thinking about how different this was from the formal royal events that usually filled their days. Here in this quiet room, they were simply a family learning to love and care for each other. "Mama," Isabella said during a pause in her song, "when James gets bigger, can he come to my lessons? I could teach him piano, and we could sing together." "That sounds wonderful," Catherine replied, "though it will be quite a while before he's big enough for formal lessons."
For now, your singing is the perfect way to help him feel safe and loved.
Isabella resumed her lullaby, this time making up words about James and what a special baby brother he was.
Her creativity and natural affection brought tears to both her parents' eyes. Alexander realized that his worries about sibling rivalry had been completely unfounded. Isabella wasn't jealous of the new baby. She was genuinely thrilled to have a brother to love and protect. As the afternoon wore on, various palace staff members quietly entered to check on the family and handle necessary arrangements. Each visitor was charmed by the sight of Isabella gently interacting with her baby brother, and word quickly spread throughout the palace that the young princess was already proving to be a devoted big sister. Lord Pemberton, the palace's chief of staff, arrived to discuss the evening's planned celebrations. The entire kingdom was expected to participate in lighting ceremonial candles at sunset to honor the new prince's arrival, and there would be a formal reception for government officials and foreign dignitaries. "Your Highnesses," Lord Pemberton said with a bow, "the preparations for this evening's festivities are nearly complete. However, if you would prefer to keep the celebrations more intimate, given the newborn's needs, we can certainly modify the schedule." Alexander looked at Catherine and Isabella, who was still contentedly singing to James. "I think we'll participate in the candle-lighting ceremony from the palace balcony, but we'll keep the reception brief. Family comes first today." Isabella looked up from her brother, suddenly realizing that their private time might be ending soon. "Do we have to share James with everyone else now? I was hoping we could just stay here together." Catherine understood her daughter's reluctance to share this special day with the formal requirements of royal life. "We'll have plenty more quiet times together, just our family." But tonight, the people of our kingdom want to celebrate James's arrival because they're happy for us. It's a way of showing love for our whole family. Even for me? Isabella asked.
They want to celebrate me being a big sister? Especially that, Alexander assured her. Being a big sister is a very important job, and everyone will want to see how wonderfully you're already taking care of James.
This perspective seemed to please Isabella greatly. She carefully kissed James's forehead and whispered, "Don't worry, little brother. I'll be right beside you during the celebrations. I won't let anything scary happen to you." As the day progressed toward evening, Isabella remained by her brother's side whenever possible. She helped choose which blanket he would wear for the public appearance, insisted on holding his hand during photos, and appointed herself as his official protector and entertainer. The transformation in Isabella from excited, expectant sister to devoted big sister had been immediate and complete. Alexander and Catherine watched with amazement as their daughter naturally stepped into her new role, displaying a maturity and caring nature that made them incredibly proud. As the sun began to set and the time for the public celebration approached, the royal family prepared to present themselves on the palace balcony. Isabella wore a new dress for the occasion, but she insisted on carrying a small toy that she wanted to give to James as a welcome present.
Are you ready for everyone to meet James? Catherine asked Isabella as they prepared to step outside.
Yes, Isabella replied confidently.
"I want everyone to see how perfect he is and how good I am at being his big sister." She paused, then added thoughtfully, "But after tonight, can we have some more quiet time together? Just our family?" "Of course, my darling," Catherine promised. "Tomorrow we'll have all the quiet family time you want." With that assurance, Isabella took her father's hand and prepared to share her beloved baby brother with the kingdom, secure in the knowledge that their family bond was strong enough to withstand any amount of public attention. The evening air was warm and filled with anticipation as thousands of citizens gathered in the grand plaza below the palace balcony. Candles flickered like tiny stars throughout the crowd, creating a magical atmosphere that would have been fitting for a fairy tale. Isabella peeked through the heavy curtains of the palace drawing room, her eyes wide with wonder at the sea of people who had come to celebrate her baby brother's arrival. "There are so many people, Papa," she whispered to Alexander, who stood beside her, adjusting his formal evening wear. "Do they all really want to see James?" "They do, sweetheart," Alexander replied, straightening his ceremonial sash. "When a prince is born, it's a celebration for the entire kingdom. These people have been waiting just as eagerly as we have for James to arrive." Catherine entered the room carrying James, who was wrapped in the traditional ceremonial blanket that had been used for royal presentations for over 2 centuries. The ancient silk, embroidered with golden threads and precious stones, caught the light beautifully, but Catherine was more concerned with ensuring her son was comfortable than with maintaining appearances. "How was he feeling about all this attention?" Alexander asked, gently touching the baby's cheek. James was awake, but calm, his blue eyes seeming to take in the grandeur of his surroundings with remarkable composure for such a young infant. "He seems to be handling it better than I am," Catherine admitted with a nervous laugh. "I know we've done this before with Isabella, but somehow it feels different this time, more intense." Isabella looked up from the window, her face serious with sudden understanding. "Is it because James might be king someday?" "Is that why there are more people?" Alexander and Catherine exchanged surprised glances. They hadn't expected their 7-year-old daughter to grasp the implications of her brother's birth quite so clearly. Isabella was remarkably perceptive for her age, often understanding complex situations that adults assumed would be beyond her comprehension. "That's part of it," Alexander said carefully, kneeling down to meet Isabella's eyes. "James is second in line to the throne after me. It's about our family and the joy that a new baby brings to everyone." Lord Pemberton appeared in the doorway, his formal evening attire impeccable despite the long day of preparations. "Your Highnesses, the crowd is ready, and the ceremonial candles have been distributed. The Archbishop is prepared to offer the blessing, and the choir is in position. We may begin whenever you feel ready." Isabella tugged on her father's sleeve. "Papa, what if James cries when we go outside?" "There are so many people, and it might be scary for him." Catherine smiled at her daughter's concern. "You know what, Isabella? If James gets scared, you can help calm him down. Your voice always makes him feel better." This responsibility seemed to give Isabella confidence. She straightened her shoulders and smoothed her dress, transforming from a worried little girl into a composed young princess. "Okay, I'm ready to help take care of James for everyone to see." The royal family made their way through the palace corridors toward the balcony, their footsteps echoing softly on the marble floors. Palace guards stood at attention as they passed, and staff members bowed respectfully, But there was something different in the air tonight. Along with the usual formal protocol, there was a genuine warmth and excitement that made the evening feel special rather than simply dutiful. As they approached the balcony doors, the sound of the waiting crowd became more apparent. Voices rose in gentle conversation, children laughed, and somewhere in the distance a street musician played a traditional melody that had been passed down through generations. The atmosphere was festive but respectful, exactly what Alexander had hoped for. "Remember," Catherine said quietly to Isabella as they paused before the doors, "we'll only be outside for a few minutes, just long enough for everyone to see James and for the Archbishop to offer his blessing."
Isabella nodded seriously. "And then we light the candles." "Then we light the candles," Alexander confirmed. "And after that we can come back inside and have some quiet family time." The balcony doors opened, and the royal family stepped into the warm evening air. The response from the crowd was immediate and overwhelming.
Thousands of voices rose in cheers and applause, and the sight of the candles being lifted high created a breathtaking display of light that stretched as far as the eye could see. Isabella gasped at the magnitude of the celebration, instinctively moving closer to her parents while maintaining her composure.
She waved to the crowd with the grace that had been taught to her since she was old enough to understand her royal role. But her other hand reached for Catherine's arm, seeking comfort in the face of such overwhelming public attention. James remained remarkably calm throughout the noise and excitement, seeming almost to enjoy the gentle evening breeze and the warm glow of the thousands of candles below.
Catherine held him so that the crowd could see him clearly while ensuring that he felt secure and protected in her arms. Alexander stepped forward to the ornate railing of the balcony and raised his hand for quiet.
The crowd gradually settled, though the excitement remained palpable in the air.
"My dear friends and fellow citizens," Alexander's voice carried clearly across the plaza, amplified by the natural acoustics of the palace's design. "Catherine and I, along with Princess Isabella, are deeply moved by your presence here tonight. The birth of Prince James is indeed a joyous occasion for our family, and we are honored to share this happiness with all of you." The crowd erupted in fresh cheers, and Alexander waited for the noise to subside before continuing. "Princess Isabella has asked me to tell you all that she is very excited to be a big sister, and she promises to teach Prince James everything he needs to know about being part of our wonderful kingdom." Isabella beamed at this public acknowledgement of her new role, standing a little taller and waving more confidently to the people below. Several voices in the crowd called, "Princess Isabella," and she responded with genuine delight, clearly enjoying the positive attention. Archbishop Williams, dressed in his finest ceremonial robes, stepped forward to offer the traditional blessing for the new prince. His deep voice resonated across the plaza as he spoke words that had been used for royal births for centuries, asking for divine protection and guidance for the young prince's life. As the archbishop spoke, Isabella listened intently, though she occasionally glanced at James to make sure he was still comfortable. When a slight breeze made the baby stir, Isabella quietly hummed the lullaby she had been singing earlier, her soft voice providing comfort that only James could hear. The moment for the ceremonial candle lighting arrived, and thousands of small flames flickered to life throughout the crowd.
The effect was magical, transforming the plaza into a sea of warm, golden light. Isabella watched in wonder, her eyes reflecting the glow of countless candles as she took in the beautiful sight.
"It's like the whole kingdom is full of stars," she whispered to Catherine, her voice filled with awe. Catherine squeezed her daughter's hand gently. "That's exactly what it's like. All these lights represent the love and good wishes that people have for James and for our whole family." Alexander lit the ceremonial royal candle, a large, ornate creation that would burn in the palace windows for the next 7 days in honor of James's birth. As the flame caught and grew strong, the crowd below responded with renewed cheers and applause. The formal portion of the evening was drawing to a close, but Alexander could see that Isabella was becoming tired from the excitement and attention. James, too, was beginning to show signs that he was ready for the quiet of the nursery. "Thank you all for sharing this wonderful evening with our family," Alexander addressed the crowd once more. "Your presence here tonight has made Prince James's welcome to the world truly special. May you all return home safely, carrying with you our gratitude and our wishes for your happiness." As the royal family prepared to retreat from the balcony, Isabella suddenly stepped forward and spoke in her clear young voice. "Thank you for coming to meet my baby brother. I promise to take very good care of him." Her spontaneous words brought delighted laughter and fresh cheers from the crowd. Catherine and Alexander exchanged proud smiles, amazed once again by their daughter's natural instincts for connecting with people. As they made their way back through the palace corridors, Isabella chattered excitedly about everything she had seen and heard. "Did you see how many candles there were? And did you hear them calling my name?"
They really do want to celebrate me being a big sister. They certainly do, Catherine agreed.
You handled yourself beautifully tonight, Isabella.
Papa and I are very proud of you. The excitement of the public celebration had been wonderful, but as they returned to the quiet intimacy of the royal nursery, all 4 family members seemed to relax. The formal requirements had been met. The kingdom had been given the opportunity to celebrate, and now they could simply be a family again.
Isabella helped Catherine settle James in his crib, singing softly to help him drift off to sleep after his first public appearance. Alexander watched his wife and children with deep contentment, knowing that despite the pressures and obligations of royal life, moments like these made everything worthwhile. As the sounds of the celebrating crowd gradually faded in the distance, the royal family of Windermere settled into their first evening as a family of 4, surrounded by love and anticipation for all the adventures that lay ahead. The palace had finally settled into peaceful quiet as the last of the evening celebrations wound down. Street cleaners were beginning to clear the plaza below, and the glow of thousands of candles was gradually being replaced by the soft light of gas lamps lining the streets. Inside the royal nursery, Catherine had just finished feeding James his final meal of the day, while Alexander sat nearby reading official documents that required his attention before morning.
Isabella had reluctantly agreed to change into her nightgown, though she kept finding reasons to return to the nursery to check on her baby brother. She had already kissed him goodnight 3 times, arranged his blankets twice, and sung him 2 different lullabies. Now she stood in the doorway wearing her favorite silk pajamas, clearly struggling with the idea of leaving James for the night.
Sweetheart, Catherine said gently, James needs to sleep now. And so do you.
It's been a very long and exciting day for everyone. But what if he wakes up and I'm not here? Isabella asked, her voice small with worry. What if he's scared in the dark and needs his big sister? Alexander set down his papers and walked over to his daughter, recognizing the genuine concern in her voice. Throughout the day, Isabella had shown remarkable maturity in her new role as big sister. But she was still a 7-year-old child who had just experienced one of the biggest changes in her young life. Isabella, he said, kneeling down to her level. James will have Mama and me here if he needs anything during the night. And first thing in the morning you can come see him again. I promise he'll be safe and happy until then. Isabella considered this, but something else seemed to be troubling her. She fidgeted with the ribbon on her nightgown, and looked back and forth between her parents with an expression that suggested she was working up the courage to say something important. What is it, darling? Catherine asked, recognizing the signs that Isabella had something serious on her mind. You can tell us anything, you know that. Isabella took a deep breath and walked closer to where Catherine sat holding James. Mama, Papa, I have a question, but I don't know if I should ask it because it might be rude or make you sad. Alexander and Catherine exchanged glances, both recognizing the careful way Isabella was approaching whatever was bothering her. Their daughter had always been thoughtful about other people's feelings, sometimes to the point of keeping her own concerns to herself rather than risk upsetting anyone. You can ask us anything, Alexander assured her. There's no such thing as a rude question when it comes from someone you love. Isabella bit her lip, still hesitating. She looked down at James, who was sleeping peacefully in Catherine's arms, completely unaware of the emotional turmoil his big sister was experiencing. Finally, she seemed to gather her courage and looked directly at her parents. Why didn't you have James sooner? She asked quietly. I mean, I know babies take time to arrive, but I've been asking for a brother or sister since I was 5. Sarah's mama had a new baby just a year after Sarah was born, and Emma has 3 little sisters. Why did James take so long to come to our family? The question hung in the air like a delicate piece of crystal, beautiful but fragile, capable of shattering with the wrong touch. Catherine felt her breath catch in her throat, while Alexander's face went very still as he processed what his daughter was really asking. Isabella continued, her words coming faster now that she had started. I heard Lady Morrison talking to Miss Hartwell last week, and she said something about how it was such a blessing that you finally had another baby, and that it must have been so difficult for you. What was difficult? Was it my fault somehow that James didn't come sooner? Catherine's eyes immediately filled with tears, though she tried to blink them back quickly. This was exactly the kind of innocent but devastating question that could come from a child's pure heart, cutting straight to the core of pain that parents thought they had hidden successfully. Alexander reached out to take Isabella's hands in his voice gentle but serious. Isabella, listen to me very carefully. Nothing about James's timing had anything to do with you. You are perfect exactly as you are, and you have brought nothing but joy to our lives since the day you were born. But Isabella's perceptive nature,
The same quality that made her such a caring sister also meant that she noticed things adults often hoped children would miss. But you always look sad when other people's babies are born. And sometimes I hear Mama crying in her room even though she tries to be quiet about it. Catherine's composure finally cracked, and tears began to flow freely down her cheeks. Alexander moved to sit beside his wife and daughter, creating a small circle of intimacy in the vast formal nursery. "Isabella," Catherine said softly, her voice thick with emotion. "Sometimes grown-ups want things very much, and when those things take a long time to happen, it can make them sad. Papa and I wanted to give you a brother or sister for a very long time, but sometimes bodies don't work the way we want them to, even when we hope and pray and do everything we can think of." Isabella's young face showed confusion and concern.
You mean you were sick? Is that why James took so long?
Not sick exactly, Alexander explained carefully.
But sometimes making babies is harder for some families than others. Mama and I had what doctors called difficulties, which meant we had to wait longer than we wanted for James to be ready to join our family. The 7-year-old processed this information with the serious concentration she applied to her most challenging lessons. "So you were sad because you wanted to give me a brother or sister, but it wasn't working?" "That's exactly right," Catherine confirmed. "We were sad, but not because of anything you did or didn't do. We were sad because we knew what a wonderful big sister you would be. And we wanted you to have that chance." Isabella's next question came even more quietly. "Did you think maybe James would never come? Did you think I would be your only child forever?" This question struck both parents with the force of a physical blow. It was precisely the fear that had haunted them during the long years of hoping and disappointment. The possibility that Isabella might grow up as an only child, not through choice, but through circumstance beyond their control. "We never stopped hoping," Alexander said honestly. "But yes, there were times when we wondered if James would ever join our family. Those were scary thoughts for us, not because we wouldn't be perfectly happy with just you, but because we knew you wanted siblings, and we wanted to give you that gift." Isabella seemed to be weighing something important in her mind. Finally, she asked the question that had probably been building up in her heart all day. "Are you going to be too tired to love me the same now that James is here? I know babies need lots of attention, and I know he might be king someday, which makes him more important than me." Catherine immediately handed James to Alexander and pulled Isabella into her arms, holding her daughter close against her heart. "Isabella, Rosemary, you listen to me right now. Nothing and no one will ever be more important to us than you are. James doesn't replace you or take away from our love for you. Love doesn't work that way. It grows bigger, not smaller. But he's the heir now," Isabella said matter-of-factly. "Everyone was so excited tonight because he might be king. I'm just the spare." Alexander felt his heart break at hearing his beloved daughter describe herself in such cold political terms. He carefully placed James in his crib and then wrapped both Catherine and Isabella in his arms. "Isabella, you're not the spare anything. You are our firstborn, our precious daughter, and the person who taught us how to be parents. James is the heir, yes, but you will always be the child who made us a family. No crown or throne or title will ever change that." Catherine stroked Isabella's hair as her daughter clung to her. "Do you remember what I told you when you asked why you don't have the same lessons as the boys in your classes?" Isabella nodded against her mother's shoulder. "You said I have different opportunities, not fewer ones." "That's right. Being a princess, being our daughter, gives you unique opportunities to help people and make a difference in the world. You don't need to be heir to the throne to be incredibly important to this kingdom and to us," Alexander added. "And Isabella, I need you to understand something about taking care of James. Yes, he'll need lots of attention because all babies do, but that's temporary. As he grows up, you'll have a brother and a best friend for your entire life. That's something nobody can take away from you, no matter what happens with crowns or kingdoms." Isabella pulled back to look at both her parents, her young face serious, but no longer quite so worried. "So you're not going to forget about me? Even when James learns to walk and talk and do interesting things?" "Never," Catherine said firmly. "We will never forget about you, and we will never stop needing you. You're going to help teach James how to be brave like Papa, and kind like Mama, and smart like his big sister. He's going to need you to show him how to be a good person, not just a good prince." "And Isabella," Alexander added, "I want you to remember that love multiplies. It doesn't divide. The love we have for you doesn't get smaller, because we love James too. Our hearts just grow bigger to hold all the love we feel for our children."
Isabella seemed to digest this concept, her worry gradually replaced by something that looked like wonder.
So having James means there's more love in our family, not less? Exactly, both parents said simultaneously, causing Isabella to giggle for the first time since asking her difficult question. She looked over at her sleeping brother, her expression softening with renewed affection. I'm glad James finally came to our family, and I'm glad I got to be your only child for a while because it means I have lots of special memories that are just ours. Catherine kissed the top of Isabella's head, marveling at her daughter's wisdom and resilience. Those special memories will always be just ours, sweetheart.
Nothing will ever change that. As Isabella finally agreed to go to her own bed, she paused at the nursery door for one last look at James. Good night, little brother. I'll see you in the morning, and I'll help Mama and Papa take care of you. But I'm not going anywhere, okay? I'm your big sister forever.
Alexander and Catherine watched their daughter leave, both deeply moved by the honest conversation they had just shared. In trying to protect Isabella from their struggles with conception and their fears about the future, they had inadvertently created worries that were far worse than the truth would have been. As they settled in for their first night as a family of 4, they both silently vowed to be more open with Isabella about the realities of their family life, while still preserving her childhood innocence. The love in their family had indeed multiplied with James's arrival, and Isabella's bedtime question had helped them all understand that truth more clearly.
3 months had passed since Prince James's arrival, and the autumn sunshine streamed through the windows of the royal family's private sitting room. Isabella sat cross-legged on the thick Persian carpet, carefully arranging wooden blocks in a complex pattern, while explaining her architectural plans to her baby brother, who lay on a soft blanket beside her, following her movements with increasingly alert eyes.
You see, James, this is going to be a castle just like ours, but with special rooms for children to play in, Isabella explained seriously, as if her 3-month-old brother could understand every word. And this tower here is where we'll keep all our books, because Papa says a good library is the most important room in any palace. Catherine watched this scene from her writing desk, where she was responding to correspondence from various charitable organizations. The transformation in their family dynamics had been remarkable to witness.
Isabella's initial worries about being forgotten or replaced had been thoroughly dispelled by the reality of daily life with a baby brother who clearly adored his big sister. Alexander entered the room carrying a tea service, having dismissed the servants for the afternoon so the family could enjoy some truly private time together.
This had become their new tradition. Sunday afternoons, with no official duties, no formal protocols. Just the 4 of them enjoying each other's company in comfortable clothes and relaxed conversation.
How are the construction plans coming along? Alexander asked, settling beside Isabella and examining her block castle, with the same serious attention he might give to actual architectural blueprints.
Very well, Papa, but I think we need more towers. James is going to need lots of space when he learns to walk and wants to explore everything.
Isabella carefully balanced another block on top of her structure. Miss Hartwell says babies learn to walk when they're about 1 year old.
That's 9 more months for us to prepare. Catherine smiled at her daughter's thoughtful planning. Isabella had thrown herself into the role of big sister with remarkable dedication, reading books about child development, asking detailed questions about baby care, and constantly making plans for activities she and James could do together as he grew older.
You know, Isabella, Catherine said, joining them on the carpet. When you were learning to walk, you were so determined that you kept trying even when you fell down. You would just get up and try again.
Was I fearless like James? Isabella asked, gently stroking her brother's tiny hand. James had proven to be a remarkably calm and curious baby, rarely crying and seeming to enjoy all the attention and activity around him.
You were fearless in your own way, Alexander replied. But you were also very thoughtful, just like you are now. You would study a room carefully before you started walking across it, making sure you knew where all the furniture was. Isabella beamed at this comparison. Over the past 3 months, her parents had made a conscious effort to share more stories about her own early childhood, helping her understand her unique place in the family while also building excitement about James's developmental milestones. James made a small cooing sound and turned his head toward Isabella's voice, causing her to abandon her blocks immediately in favor of talking to him. Hello, little brother. Do you like my castle? When you're bigger, we can build real castles together. Maybe we can even build a playhouse in the gardens. That sounds like an excellent idea, Alexander agreed. We could ask the head gardener to help us design something special. Catherine had been continually amazed by how naturally Isabella had adapted to sharing their parents' attention.
Rather than competing with James for time and focus, she had found ways to include herself in his care, and to make herself indispensable as his protector and entertainer. "Mama," Isabella said suddenly, "do you remember when I asked you that question about why James took so long to come to our family?" Catherine's hand stilled on the teacup she had been raising to her lips.
The conversation from James's first night had become a turning point for their family, leading to more open and honest communication about difficult topics. "I remember, sweetheart."
"Why do you ask?" "Because I was thinking about it, and I realized something important." Isabella's voice carried the tone she used when she had been puzzling through a complex problem. "James didn't take too long to come to our family."
He came at exactly the right time. Alexander and Catherine exchanged surprised glances. "What makes you say that?" Alexander asked gently.
Isabella considered her answer carefully, her mature thoughtfulness evident in her expression. "Well, if James had been born when I was 5 like I wanted, I wouldn't have been old enough to really help take care of him.
I wouldn't have been able to read to him, or understand what he needs, or teach him important things. I was too little then." Catherine felt tears prick her eyes at her daughter's wisdom. "That's a very insightful observation, Isabella." And also, Isabella continued, warming to her theme, "If James had come sooner, then you and Papa wouldn't have had as much time to just be with me. We got to do lots of special things together, just the three of us. Like when we went to see the northern provinces last summer, or when we had those long talks about history and books."
Alexander was struck by how differently Isabella now viewed what they had all experienced as years of waiting and disappointment. From her perspective, those years had been valuable preparation time rather than empty delay.
"Plus," Isabella added, "I think maybe James was waiting until he knew for sure that I would be ready to be the best big sister possible. He was probably watching from wherever babies wait before they're born, making sure I had learned everything I needed to know to take care of him properly."
This fanciful but touching interpretation of James's timing made both parents smile. Catherine reached over to squeeze Isabella's hand.
"I love the way you think about things, my darling. You have such a beautiful heart."
James began to fuss slightly, and Isabella immediately shifted into her protective mode. "I think he might be getting hungry, Mama. He makes that particular sound when he wants milk." Over the months, Isabella had become remarkably skilled at interpreting James's different cries and needs. As Catherine prepared to feed James, Isabella settled beside her, ready to provide entertainment in the form of songs or stories if needed. This had become their routine, with Isabella serving as James's official companion during meals, ensuring that he never felt alone or bored. "Isabella," Alexander said, "I want to tell you something important. The question you asked on James's first night taught Mama and me something valuable about our family."
Isabella looked up from where she was gently stroking James's hair. "What did it teach you?" "It taught us that we should always talk openly about difficult things, instead of trying to protect each other from hard truths. Your question helped us realize that you were creating your own explanations for things you didn't understand, and some of those explanations were making you worry unnecessarily." Catherine nodded in agreement.
"We thought we were protecting you by not talking about our struggles to have another baby, but instead we made you feel uncertain about your place in our family. That was our mistake, not yours."
Isabella absorbed this lesson with the seriousness she brought to all important conversations. "So it's better to ask hard questions than to just worry about things by myself." "Much better," both parents confirmed simultaneously.
"Good," Isabella said with satisfaction, "because I do have another question, but it's not a sad one this time." "What's your question?" Catherine asked, curious about what was on her daughter's mind now.
"When James gets older and starts having lessons like me, can I be one of his teachers sometimes? I know I'm not a grown-up, but I think there are some things that a big sister could teach better than anyone else." Alexander smiled broadly at this request. "What kinds of things do you think you could teach him?" Isabella's eyes lit up with enthusiasm. "Well, I could teach him the best places to read in the palace when he wants quiet time, and I could show him how to be kind to the staff members because they work so hard to take care of us. And I could teach him about all the portraits in the gallery and what those people were like. And," she continued, her voice growing more excited, "I could teach him about being brave when meeting new people, and how to remember everyone's names, and how to make people feel comfortable when they're nervous about meeting royalty." Catherine was struck by how thoroughly Isabella had thought about her role as James's guide to royal life. More importantly, she had focused on lessons about character and kindness rather than protocol and procedure. "Isabella, I think you would be an excellent teacher for James," Catherine said warmly. You've learned so much about being a good person, not just a good princess. Those are exactly the kinds of lessons James will need. And, Alexander added, I think James is very lucky to have a big sister who cares so much about helping him grow into a good man. Isabella beamed with pride at this affirmation of her importance in James's life. She looked down at her baby brother, who had finished eating and was now looking around the room with bright, curious eyes.
Did you hear that, James? I'm going to help teach you how to be wonderful. But don't worry, we're going to have lots of fun while we're learning. I have so many games and stories to share with you.
As the afternoon sun began to shift lower in the sky, the royal family settled into comfortable silence, each lost in their own thoughts about the future. Isabella returned to her block castle, this time building with James lying beside her so he could watch her work.
Catherine and Alexander sat together on the sofa, hands intertwined, watching their children and marveling at how perfectly their family had come together.
The worries and fears that had dominated the early hours after James's birth seemed like distant memories now. Isabella's bedtime question had indeed been a turning point, forcing them all to confront hidden anxieties and ultimately bringing them closer together as a family.
Alexander, Catherine said quietly, do you ever wonder what other difficult questions Isabella might ask us as she gets older? Alexander considered this thoughtfully. I'm sure there will be many.
But after seeing how beautifully she handled learning about our struggles to have James, I think we can trust her to handle whatever comes next. She's stronger and wiser than we sometimes give her credit for.
Isabella looked up from her blocks, having overheard their conversation. Don't worry about future questions, Mom and Papa. Whatever they are, we'll figure out the answers together.
That's what families do. With that simple statement, Isabella perfectly captured what they had all learned over the past 3 months. Their family had been transformed not just by James's arrival, but by their newfound commitment to honesty, openness, and facing challenges together. As evening approached and it came time to prepare for dinner, Isabella carefully picked up James and held him close.
Thank you for coming to our family, little brother, she whispered. I understand now that you came at exactly the perfect time, when we were all ready to love you the very best way possible. James responded with what might have been his first real smile, causing Isabella to gasp with delight and call for her parents to witness this momentous occasion.
As they all gathered around to celebrate this tiny milestone, the royal family of Windermere looked toward their future with confidence, knowing that whatever questions or challenges lay ahead, they would meet them together, with love, honesty, and the unshakable bond that connected their hearts.